Welcome to Forward Progress, powered by the Hammer Betting Network. I'm your host, Rob Pizzola, joined as always by my co-host, Clive Bixby. We are live on the Forward Progress YouTube channel and live on Twitter as well, at Forward NFL, if you want to follow our account on Twitter. As always, so you never miss out on a show here on Forward Progress, hit that subscribe button if you are on YouTube. And also, if you do enjoy the content, smash the like button as well. It goes a long way with the YouTube algorithms, really trying to drive that search traffic up. So please, if you do enjoy the content, do like the content as well. We are going to recap the week that was, per usual. We'll probably pass over Monday Night Football this week just because we talked off air. Neither myself or Clive have a bet on the Monday Night Football game. Probably be doing a disservice breaking down a game where I'm like, well, the game is pretty much exactly where the market is right now. So we'll probably gloss over that, but then we will get around to all of week 16 and we will do things a little bit differently this week. And I'm sorry, people out there. I tried. It's week 15 of the NFL season. I made it this far, but I have seen all the lines that were released for next week's games. So we're going to try something a little bit different this week. Myself and Clive put our heads together. We're just going to pull up the lines for next week's games. And we're going to just say, we think it's going to move this way. We think it's going to move that way. Whatever. But there's going to be no guessing of the actual opening lines this time around. It's more so going to be line movement. That's it for the intro. It's quite a spiel.
Well, we already got somebody in the chat predicting what I'm going to predict. So that's interesting. Let's keep this going.
Yes. Let's spend the first 30 minutes on the Patriots Raiders. I could spend probably even more than that on the Patriots Raiders if we really wanted to, but I'm looking for viewership here. I'm not looking for everyone to exit the video stream. Clive, let's get into it. How was the day for you today?
Today was fine. Yesterday sucked. Yesterday blew. I got hit hard. Mostly the Buffalo game under with all the weather, shit that happened. That kind of hit me pretty hard. But the pick that I made, I guess, Sunday night right after our show, that managed to win. Bengals -3.5. The market came back against me late today. So, I don't know. How about you?
Probably the best week of the year for me. I'll do the final accounting. Yesterday was a good day. Saturday was good. Sunday was very good. Things went well. I don't have too many complaints about today. I have a few, but I'm going to be positive Rob for once, and just not, dwell on what could have been, because it ended up being pretty good overall. I did have the Colts yesterday, which was like sweat central. Like this is my life, right? 33-0 lead at the half with a team that you got +4 and somehow have to sweat the result in that game. But I did have the side in all 3 games yesterday that covered. So pretty happy about that.
That's a pretty solid week then.
For those that can't tune in for the entire show tonight, this usually wraps around midnight Eastern time. That's not a problem. The episode's available in full when you wake up tomorrow morning. You can hop back onto YouTube if you want to watch it. It's also available in podcast form on Spotify and Apple Music as well. And we do try to incorporate the YouTube chat into the show as much as possible. If you are watching on Twitter, hop on over to YouTube. You'll see right in the bottom middle of your screen, Forward Progress YouTube channel. That's exactly where we're at. Papa Kel says, I seem to feel better. His voice ain't, I don't know if we're going to hold up here, Clive, for another 85 minutes, man. It's going to be a grind tonight, I think. No eggnog, at least.
No eggnog. Yeah, it was funny. I saw like Southern Comfort actually makes a flavor, or they make their own eggnog. I had no idea. Like that came up in the chat last week. I was in the store. I'm like, Southern Comfort eggnog? Really? I thought they only made alcohol. It was interesting.
Yeah. I'm not a huge SoCo fan. Like we used to, when I was in my college days, like we used to use it for shooters and stuff like that. And that's about it. It's not something I'm not going to ruin a great tasting eggnog with SoCo,
That sounds like an oxymoron, but I'll take your word for it. I got a little bit of heat for not liking eggnog myself last week.
Yeah. You were the outsider. I brought it up last week, and the chat went wild on you. I mean, I will say it is definitely like I can see why eggnog is a love it or hate it thing. Like, there's no in between. There's not somebody that's like, eggnog is just fine. Like, it's either the flavor profile really jives or it's just not there.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about the good today, or not necessarily the good, but things that you felt strongly about going into this week that you think were validated by the way the game's played out.
Zach Wilson still sucks. So there's that.
Actually, I'm going to pause you immediately right there, because I felt like I was taking crazy pills. So I bet that the Jets are one of the first bets I made this week. I thought Mike White was going to play. I thought, based off what Mike White was saying in the media, was that it felt like he was going to get cleared to play. He's like, I'm absolutely going to be playing this week. Okay, sure. I'll fire on the Jets. Okay, I get the Zach Wilson announcement. My immediate reaction is, okay, let's get as much on the line. Let's get as much off of this Jets position as possible right now, which I tried to do. Maybe I got half my bet off. And then line moved. Next day, the line just right back in the same spot. Like there wasn't a downgrade from Mike to Zach Wilson. And I thought I was taking crazy pills, and it survived till today. And I was like, I pulled the old galaxy brain of, I'm looking at Zach Wilson's games this year. He's played all these bad teams. Great teams, great defenses. Maybe he's not that bad. Maybe this is just a product of him facing all these good defenses. And I convinced myself that, maybe it's not a downgrade. And then I watched the game and I'm like, oh God, like Zach Wilson sucks.
Yeah. Zach Wilson doing Zach Wilson things. The G-rated stuff that he does, at least. So when I saw that, I wasn't all that surprised that the line came back. I was surprised, though, that, it ended up closing today 2.5 almost everywhere. So that kind of caught me off guard. I know Lions haven't played a ton of strong defenses lately, so I could see you making that kind of case, but it really was surprising. I thought it would end at -1 or so, but 2.5, that kind of caught me off guard. But Zach Wilson played exactly how I expected him to play. Total, there was one play, I think I commented, you tweeted something, and then he managed to throw a pick probably seconds after, or it was right in between. There was no other read. It was just his receiver, and he threw it right to the defender. So what's the case there? Is it the fact that there's just not enough data on Mike White to really truly consider him an upgrade? Is that what the market's thinking? Because that's the only thing that I can come up with to put them on an even playing field.
I don't know what it is. Definitely the eye test leans Mike White. It's probably too small of a sample size to say for sure, but I don't know. I don't. I think even the big plays that Zach Wilson made today were just these 50-50 balls that he chucked up downfield that it could have went anywhere. At the end of the day, maybe I'm underselling him a little bit in the fact that it wasn't horrendous. If you forget the final score of the game, you just take the box score, hide the team names, look down. It was about as even a game as you can imagine, Lions and Jets today. So there's that. But that interception where it was a cover 3 defense, and I maybe thought it was cover 1, and there was no safety on that side, help on that side of the field or anything. But that was, I audibly laughed out loud. Sometimes you just internalize it and that's an idiot. I go to my phone, I tweet something. I laughed out loud when that happened.
Well, I was going back and forth between a couple other games, and that's exactly what happened. I laughed. I'm like, oh, Zach Wilson, what could this be? It's exactly what you expected from Zach Wilson. He underthrew 90% of those fuck it balls. Yeah, that sounds about right.
And honestly, I agree with Alex here as well. I should have done a way better on this game than I did. So that's probably like you know, my opinion wasn't solidified on Zach Wilson because I didn't have the balls to bet my opinion hard enough. Let me put it that way. And maybe I was a little bit scared of like the Goff outdoor weather road thing against a good defense. And like, there was just too much happening in that game for me to process. And I didn't trust my number well enough to have capitalized on it. But I basically ended up with it being as close to a true pick 'em as possible. And I almost certainly would have taken the money line prices on the Lions at close here. Just really quickly looking at what the money lines, like plus 120 widely available, right? When you have the game as 50-50, you're almost going to take that bet every single time.
Yeah. Well, now the Lions are, continue to move up their way up people's power rankings. And so we'll be interested to see. I know you've seen the lines. I haven't looked at them yet, so I'll react to them as we look at them together. But I'll be interested to see how the market is going to treat them, if they're going to treat them any differently. I had the game pretty even. This game pretty even myself, but let's see what happens with the openers.
The big one in terms of like a quarterback change for me was the Pickett to Trubisky today. So I bet the Steelers today, had a big bet on the Steelers spread, money line. I don't know how we got to Carolina at some point in the week, like -3, even the 2.5s. Like Pittsburgh is better than Carolina. And the thought, like Trubisky is not good, but like pump the brakes. If we went back to the beginning of the year before week 1 and you polled a bunch of random NFL fans of whether they'd rather have Trubisky or Darnold, I'm guessing more people would have said Trubisky at that point. And people like galaxy brain themselves into Darnold being good again after last week's performance, where his average depth of target was like 4.2 yards and they just ran the ball nonstop. I mean, that one was just a nice one to get right because the Steelers are better than Carolina and Darnold still stinks and he's still very limited offensively. I mean, the Panthers had 12 first downs today, 209 net yards of total offense. The Steelers basically had the ball for the entirety of the game. So that was a nice one to get right. But do people really downgrade like the Steelers offense if it's Trubisky instead of Pickett? Like, I think Pickett will be a good pro. He might not be. I think he probably will be. But like, what has Pickett shown you this year that there's going to be like some substantial downgrade to the backup there? Like Mason Rudolph's a different story, but Trubisky, like it's interchangeable.
They are. I think Trubisky's a little bit more careless with the ball, and I think people probably overreacting to the week before where he threw 3 picks. I think he was 16 of 19, and his 3 misses were 3 picks, which is ridiculous. But I mean, he can move the ball. So the more he's just he's a better Zach Wilson, I guess. Is that what I'm going to call him? That feels hurtful. I don't know if I should say that.
I think Trubisky's garbage, right? But like,
yeah.
What do we? I just didn't really understand that, and so that was nice to get right. Mickey says Steelers are still really bad in net yards per play. Must be why the market's still down on them. Like net yards per play was what we would use 5 or 6 years ago when there were no better metrics available to evaluate these teams. Now we have EPA. Now we have success rate. You have to account for the fact that TJ Watt was missing from their lineup for so long as well. They had significant injuries on the defensive side of the ball. So I'm not sure
talked about
matters.
A lot.
Of course.
On our forward progresses. Like, this is why, we can't take the Steelers yet. Let's not overreact to what's happening now. When they get these guys back, they can be dangerous. And, they've played. They're not the bottom 5 team that the market had them, weeks 2 through 6 or whatever the week numbers were.
Right. I got a lot right today, so I'm not going to just keep patting myself on the back.
Did I get anything else right? I don't think I got anything else right. Not like, I mean, a significant read on something. I mean, the Giants, I would say, the Giants had no business being almost 6-point dogs. I think it was 5.5 that they opened at this week. I didn't think there was any merit to that whatsoever. I think they're a pretty even team with the Commanders. So that was the other thing. there's some wild stuff that happened today, though, that definitely I was wrong about.
So today was chaotic. This weekend was chaotic. I was lucky that either I wasn't involved. Like, if I had bet New England today, I would have had an ulcer. Like, not only the way that they lost with, the Jacoby Myers, like, lateral across the field. By the way, Mac Jones just getting stiff-armed into the ground is, like, forever ingrained in my mind now. Like, one of the funniest things I've seen. But the touchdown that they scored to tie the game was so conclusively not a touchdown. I don't know how that even stood. Like, I understand that the camera view was like a billion-dollar company. We can't get a view of a guy's foot, like whether he's inbounds or not. But even the view that they had, which was an aerial one, it was so clear that that foot was out of bounds. I don't know how that didn't get overturned. I would have lost it. So I kind of like when that chaotic stuff happens and I'm not involved. So that for one today was just like great to watch that and be like, "Ooh, at least it wasn't me this time that like was on the losing end of that."
Yeah, so there's that. I had a bunch of teaser legs today. There were a couple of good teaser numbers out there to be played. And then, Hopkins in the end zone, with 2-point conversion, which, I mean, the guy was getting hugged, held, whatever you want to call it. And he's just, the ref is staring. Like, he is literally staring at this. And I mean, talk about galaxy brain. That actually cost me a really big day. Not to say that they would have made the 2-point conversion from the one. You don't know what would have happened, but for that just to be the thing that really kind of crushed me today sucked. But it was a lot of that kind of weird stuff today.
The two things that I've been harping on for a while now, aside from the Steelers, forget about the Steelers. I've already touched on them, but I've been harping on the Steelers being underrated in market for a bit now. The Bucs being unbettable. So they go up 17-0, and I'm like, this is finally the week that these guys are going to cover. I didn't have the Bengals today, full disclosure, nothing on the game, whatever. But I'm like, oh, okay, the Bucs are back. Todd Bowles, I finally have not bet on the Bucs, and he goes for 2 4th downs in like the first quarter. I'm like, what's going on here? New Todd Bowles, this is what's happening. Sure, the Bucs are going to be a force now. And then 4 turnovers later, and like the Bengals just the Bengals. If you look at the stats of this game and remove the turnover column, you will be at a loss for how the Bengals possibly put up the amount of points that they did today. They went 4 of 5 in the red zone in terms of scoring touchdowns. They had a lot of short fields because the Bucs turned it over 4 times more than anyone in the NFL this week. The Bengals averaged 3.8 yards per play of offense today. 3.8, and they won by margin. The Bucs suck. People are just continuously talking themselves into like, it's Brady. They're going to figure it out. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. They suck. They're going to lose in the first game of the playoffs. If they even get there, they're still leading no one will take this division.
I want Carolina to win so badly. So badly. I like chaos when it comes to that stuff.
Do the Saints have hope right now? Do the Saints have hope of winning this division? Or
I don't know any of the tiebreaker scenarios. I mean, I know there's odds on them to still win the division, so they're mathematically alive. It's a good question. But
the Saints are the best team. The Saints are the best team in this division. I know it sounds absurd.
No, it doesn't.
I don't know how they lost.
All the injuries they had. Yeah.
They lost to the Bucs 17-16. They led the 16-3 a few weeks back, Monday Night Football. That was like if the Saints won that game, it's a different story. But like, honestly, the Tampa is horrible. I don't know what people, the Bengals outscored Tampa 34-6 after Rob said Bowles was not a cuck. It's true. Bowles was not a cuck this week. He did his damnedest to make some positive EV decisions, and they still
failed miserably. I don't know how many of the people watching have played NBA Jam, but there's something called computer assistance. And when you're down a certain amount of scores or whatever, it kind of it kind of kicks the calibration to the team that is down. And with the way that the Bucs were just not protecting the football, that's what it felt like. It felt like not real life. Like with the fumbles, the the fake punt, everything just wildly nuts. So I did have the Bengals. I'm not proud of that, but on the other hand, I'll take the win.
No, I think you should be proud of it. Like everybody, again, I use the term galaxy brain way too much. But you have the team that leads the NFL in their against the spread record in the Bengals, who are constantly undervalued. And then you have the team that has the worst against the spread record in NFL, which is the Bucs, who people constantly, for some reason, come up with ways to bet this team. I'm guilty of it. Like, I don't want to, I'm not, I bet Tampa Bay against San Francisco a couple weeks ago. Horrible bet. I fell for the same thing. We just need to stop. We need to just take a step back and say, this is what it is. It ain't changing.
It's over.
It's week 15 of the NFL season. Like, it ain't changing. The stuff that they do, they're going to continue to do it. And I'm glad. Like, I saw the injury reports this week, right? And I'm like, oh no, this is shaping up like T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd might be out. And the Bucs are getting a bunch of guys back in the secondary. Like, I'm going to have to make a decision. Now, thankfully, Higgins and Boyd played, so I didn't have to make that decision. But, this is a good question. What's Tampa Bay's rating? Like, what is their market rating right now? I'll tell you, I'm definitely way lower than them. But, like, I don't know. The market has this as like a borderline top 10 team. Like, it's
the market has them at about a point or so, they're in that clump of like 8 through 15 in the league where, a half a point either way really skews things. I have them a point and a half worse than what the market has them. So that's why I was able to easily make the bet that I made on Sunday of last week. But I don't know if it was the right one. The market must have galaxy brained because they got money late today.
So Mickey says 9th on Unpredictable, which is Unpredictable is a site that puts up, market power ratings. It's very clear to me that the market has like a top 6, which it's clear to everybody. What those top 6 are: KC, Buffalo, the Eagles, the Cowboys, the 49ers, the Bengals. And then there's like a slight drop off to the Dolphins and now the Browns. We can, whether you agree with that or not, the Browns defense has gotten a whole lot better since Deshaun Watson got back, but their offense hasn't. But now they're covering spreads. And then there's like this cluster. It's this massive cluster of these teams that are separated by like 2 points. And the market puts Tampa Bay and Green Bay atop this cluster, and I don't ever. And that's where I have the biggest differences on a weekly basis.
It's got to be quarterback priors that on like these aging quarterbacks. Like, I don't know who's going to be the next group. I mean, we moved off of Matt Ryan, I think, relatively quickly as a society this year, which was nice. But Matt Ryan is also not Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady.
Right.
So I don't know who the next quarterback is going to be that's going to fall into that group that's going to get overvalued for a while. I think we're a little ways away from it, but it'll be interesting. We saw it with Drew Brees too. Like, when these guys go, they go.
Yep. I'm with you there. I'm with you. I think it takes a while for people to catch up to that. The last thing that I was really passionate about today was for those who watch the video, you see the Cowboy symbol here. I'm a Cowboys fan. I bet the Jags for a ton today. I think that Jacksonville has been incredibly underrated. I've mentioned this before. I'm not. I talked about it on Pizza Buffet this morning here on Forward Progress on YouTube. But the Jags offense is really good. And what was happening early in the year was they were moving the ball between the 20s. And then they get to the red zone and like Trevor Lawrence would shit his pants, basically. Like he was his EPA per dropback in the red zone was like catastrophically bad. And now his play in the red zone has caught up to his play outside of the red zone. And, listen, it's the Cowboys defense with a bunch of injuries in the secondary. I get it. But like, this is a growing theme now for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They had 500 yards of total offense today, 7.2 yards per play. They had a 57% success rate on offensive plays today. scored 5 touchdowns overall. Like, the offense is humming right now for the Jags. And like, they're 1 game back now against of the Titans. They have a head-to-head with the Titans in a couple weeks. The Jags could be in the playoffs.
Yeah. And they probably should be. So, 3-4 weeks ago, I forget who they were playing. It feels like forever ago. But I posted something about Trevor Lawrence not really progressing. I think he had 2 or 3 fumbles that day. It was against the Ravens. And for me, it was really the lack of ball control, ball security, whatever you want to call it. That stuff drives me nuts for a quarterback. Since that day, he has played incredibly, incredibly well. Protecting the football for the most part, not galaxy braining things, to your point, like, not having bad red zone possessions. He's progressed. He's progressed a lot. And I think because I lost on a couple of Jags games earlier in the year, I think I soured on them probably when I shouldn't have. It's like that emotional response where I thought they were undervalued as well, and then they just weren't getting it done. So I kind of clicked off. And that's a mistake. I was surprised by the Jags today doing as well as they did offensively, for sure.
Yep. So that's the right. Anything that changed? I mean, it's week 15, so it's very hard at this point. But like, anything that you're seeing now that's somewhat changing your opinion of a team?
So the Jags, I'm going to probably move up more than anybody else, but I had them undervalued, so I'm probably going to get them back to market. I did bet the Browns this week, and I do think they are improving and getting better. So I think they're trending in the right direction. They're the only 2 teams that I move too much. I mean, Minnesota, I still have has as an average team. I mean, congrats on the largest comeback of all time, but you shouldn't have been down 33 to begin with. Like, there is a little bit of merit to that statement too. So depending on what the number is, that's how I view the Vikings. But nobody else I can really move up or down all that much. I mean, the Patriots today, it was just beyond laughable. But I can't move them too much for that either. So, like you said, there's not a lot that's going to be all that surprising. It's just, who are the teams that I think got off to slow starts, whether it be injuries or, new systems, chemistry, whatever you want to call it, for those teams, who are the few teams that are undervalued that you could bet week to week. Or units. Maybe look at it like units, especially if you like betting totals.
The team that's given me problems right now is San Francisco. I don't know
in
what
your
to
numbers or your perception.
Both. It doesn't even feel like there's been a drop off from Garoppolo to Purdy. I think what you tend to see with young quarterbacks is the more that they play, and like the more that teams see them and have tape on them, they tend to see declining performances going forwards. I don't know what to take away from the Thursday nighter, because Seattle's also bad and their defense is bad. And they've been declining over the course of the past month. But if the 49ers can keep playing at this defensive level, maybe they can win with Brock Purdy. Like, I'm starting to convince myself of that.
So, I mean, what you see, at least statistically, of what I saw, is the average depth of target, which was not particularly high with Garoppolo, has shrunk even more. So I don't know what teams are going to do. I'm sure they will think of some things to take away some of those shorter routes for them. They're going to try and make it challenging, and eventually he's going to have to beat them either outside the numbers or, stretch the field a little bit more. Can he do that? I don't know him at all outside of, this small sample. I don't know anything about him from college. I don't know any of that stuff, but the defense is so elite.
Yeah. They are dealing with some injuries in their secondary, but it doesn't seem to matter at all for that team. Okay. We got about an hour left in the show. Let's try to get to as many games as possible for next week. Again, if you're late to the party this week and you just started tuning in, I have already seen the numbers for next week's games. So we're going to do things a little bit differently this week. And rather than just guessing where they're going to open and where they're going to move, we'll pull up the BetStamp odds screen. We'll take a look at where the numbers are right now, and then we'll predict where we think that they'll end up. I do want to preface this by saying it's almost Christmas. Weather in late December is, especially in the Northeast, is an absolute disaster. I'll talk about the weather reports for this upcoming week. Things can change drastically. If you do listen back to this later in the week, which a lot of people do, I appreciate that. But be advised that obviously if you've seen drastic changes in weather in a game, it's going to affect our opinion of that game, especially the total, the total. So just don't take this as gospel going forwards. And once again, if you are enjoying the show, please drop a like, hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way as well. And if you're watching in replay, comments don't hurt too bad either. All right, let's get into it. Pulling up BetStamp here. For those that don't know, you can download BetStamp on your Android or iOS device, or you can just check out the website, betstamp.app. It is free to use. You don't have to pay for anything. Thursday night football, New York Jets, Jacksonville Jaguars. My location currently set to New Jersey, so we'll see all the New Jersey sportsbooks right here as we take a look at the odds screen. And we're basically getting the Jets as a very small favorite, pretty much a consensus -1 for the New York Jets across the board with a total of 40. I'll take a quick look at the weather. We're expecting 45 degrees Fahrenheit, which is actually surprisingly one of the warmer games that's expected this week because it's Thursday, and then there's going to be a cold front rolling in on the weekend. Winds are not going to be too bad, but it will probably rain during this game. We don't know the effect of that just yet. So, Clive, initial reaction, Jets -1 and the total of 40.
Total even. I know the Jets defense is pretty solid, but that does seem a little bit low for me, especially, Jets Lions 44. I know the Lions have a significantly worse defense. I think that total in normal weather would tick up a little bit. I'm trying to get the weather on my app because I'd like to know what it's going to be like in New Jersey the next few days. I don't live too far from that stadium. I think the Jets maybe get slightly downgraded and the Jags get upgraded a little bit to the point where, from a market perspective, they probably flip positions. Whereas the Jets maybe half a point or so, above the Jags. I think it flips now. So that 1 point seems market normal. But I do think the Jags will take money at that number and will flip to be favorites, probably in the 110 to 115 money line range. On
So the market showed support for Zach Wilson today. I think that's probably a one and done. So I think this is very quarterback dependent. The problem with Mike White right now is that no doctor would approve, no doctor would clear him to play this week. They said, Mike, you got a broken rib, you're sitting and out. We're not clearing you to play. He got opinions from 10 different doctors. No one would clear him. The team wouldn't clear him. I just don't think that Mike White is back on a short week. I think it's probably a Zach Wilson game if I had to guess. Now, do they get Quinnen Williams back on a short week? Maybe, because he was apparently close to playing today. So those are going to have an impact on where the market moves. And it's very lazy for me to say that. But if you get Quinnen Williams in, the Jets are going to take money. If you get Mike White in, the Jets are going to take money. If you get negative news on both, then the Jags are going to take money. I feel like this is
probably another point and a half. I would say, to the point where Jags end up 2.5 point favorites. If those guys are both out,
I don't know that the Jags have any significant. I saw actually their left tackle Cam Robinson got hurt today, so I mean there is that as well that has to be accounted for. But the Jets are the team that's dealing with the injuries right now that I think could affect it. I don't know where this is going to go though, because both teams did get sharp support this week. The Jags were quote unquote the sharp side, took a little bit of money, not a ton, but circa closed that one at 3.5. Cowboys, Jags. So you kind of know where their lean was. And again, the Jets with the all that money that came in late on them. I could honestly just see this dangling around the price where it's at right now. Small favorite Jets at home.
Yeah. No Mike White. if that happens, I think people are, like you said, kind of done with Zach Wilson. I think maybe the Jags flip slight favorite. I'm looking at the weather, and it's supposed to be awful here on Thursday. So rain all day, winds 15 to 25 miles an hour, rainfall near a quarter of an inch, and then at night 1 to 2 inches of rain. So that total, I don't know enough how much that's going to impact the total, but that makes sense of why it's where it's at.
But to me, see, like that, if that's the weather, my immediate thought is that favors the Jets immediately because the Jags don't stop the run well. And like if it gets into a game where it's like, okay, extremely sloppy, you take away what the Jags do best, and that's throwing the ball downfield. Like that, to me, I would be more inclined to bet the Jets in a game like that than I would the Jags.
Which I think makes sense. The Jags defense, I think, has been a little bit kind of porous and sloppy in situations like that too. Poor tackling, things like that. These are just observations. I haven't looked enough at like broken tackle numbers or anything like that, but that does align with what you're saying.
If the weather is what you're describing, where it's going to be like torrential downpour like that, this total is going down. It won't close 40. Yeah. This is going to go like down below 37 if that's the case. That's what's going to happen here. Okay, Saturday is our main day next week, by the way, where we've got a ton of games. Our usual Sunday slate moves to Saturday because of Christmas Day. So we'll start with Buffalo and Chicago. Market's kind of painted in this range of 8.5 to 9.5. Totals ranging from 41.5 to 42.5. This is almost certainly going to be impacted by weather. I believe this is supposed to be looks like 3 degrees Fahrenheit right now with winds of 20 miles an hour in Chicago, which would explain why you have a Bills-Bears game with a total that's in the low 40s already. Early thoughts, Bills and Bears with some probable extreme weather conditions.
So here's a question, and why are we still playing Justin Fields if we're Chicago with like some of these little injuries and him keep getting banged up? Like, I don't know how bad he is, but at what point do you kind of shut him down and just say, that's it? Like, he's shown so much potential and so much growth. I get that you want to play him, but if he has lingering injuries at all, is there any merit to just sitting him?
Possibly. It's tough to just tell a player though.
Yeah, I get that. But wouldn't you be thinking that? Like, I wouldn't have brought him back into the game once you brought Peterman in the game in any way, shape, or form. I would have just been done with it.
I would agree with you. It's a little bit more challenging when it's a home game because it's like your home fans and stuff like that. The player, I mean, I don't know what kind of message it sends to the player and the team going forwards beyond this year, if you're willing to do stuff like that. But from an analytical person, the Bears have nothing to play for. Fields has shown a ton of development. He's banged up across the board. You don't want him to, have any nagging injuries next year or anything like that. Get your higher draft pick and move on.
Anyway, that being said, I mean, the total makes sense given the weather. And then, I mean, the Eagles were 8.5 point favorites in Chicago. Buffalo being 9 to 9.5. I think that makes sense.
It does until you bring into account the extreme weather, in my opinion. Because once you bring into account extreme weather, then you're starting to really shrink the variance in the game, right? Like today's total for the Bears and Eagles closed, 48.5?
It came down. It was 48.5 earlier in the day. Circa closed 47.
Okay.
Pinnacle 48.
So in my opinion, Bears are way more likely to draw money here just because as that total goes down, which is the most likely scenario, the underdog just starts to look more appealing. it's like, okay, we know like this game, it closes with a total in the 30s, and you can get Chicago at home, who, by the way, can run the ball. Like, it's the one thing that they do well against the Bills defense that really can't stop it either. I think that a lot of people will be convinced that the Bears maybe even be live in this game.
Bears are going to be a good teaser, I think, for this week. I couldn't possibly take them to. It depends. It depends on the price. It depends on what happens, I guess. But I don't think, to your point with the weather, it's another situation where it's not going to favor moving in the Bills' direction. If anything, the Bears will take a little money. I mean, I can't. Where do you think the line is, though? Meaning, it won't cross X. I can't imagine it crossing 7.5.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I think you're probably right. That's the low point, 7.5. But if this was just ordinary conditions, right? If these two teams play today, Buffalo's probably laying 10 is what I would say. Right? Or very close to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. On to the next one. Saints and Browns. Okay. What'll stand out immediately is the total of this game, which is pretty much 35 across the board, with the Browns laying juiced 3, some -3, -120, or some -3.5s, -105 on the board right now. The reason that this total is where it is there are expected to be sustained wind gusts of 25 to 40 miles an hour in this game. Very windy, foggy, cold, 14 degrees Fahrenheit. Just an absolute disaster of a weather game.
I thought they were just going to play 3 quarters. I mean, at this number, and I see some 3.5s, or lightly juiced 3.5s. I would think the Saints take money. I have interest in the Saints right now. I mean, I want to look at a couple of things, but looking at this immediately, and this is somebody who's been high on the Browns the last couple of weeks too. Mm-hmm. I like the Saints a lot here.
So I think what's going to happen in a lot of these games, and I'll just make a blanket statement, but if it's going to be a weather impacted game, I think that the dog will take money. Because the most likely scenario is the total drops. And in that case, the points with the underdog become more valuable. And I can totally see it. Another thing is is Cleveland's offense good enough to cover, win by margin regularly? It still looks bad, man. It still looks really bad.
I haven't seen all that much improvement. I've seen a little, but not enough to say that this is Deshaun Watson yet or anywhere close to it. It's kind of surprising. It's been disappointing in some ways because I just thought he would play better, or at least kind of scale up to what he could be. And even against the Ravens, he didn't look great.
This comment just made me laugh. Cade York isn't making any field goals in this game. LOL. That field goal that Cade York kicked, why do teams draft kickers? I don't understand. If you draft a kicker, he better be Justin Tucker. Not a guy who's going to miss a 40-yard field goal by 20 yards to the left that it comes 10 yards, perfectly held. What's wrong? I don't know what's wrong with these teams. But Cade York isn't making field goals. Doesn't matter if the weather's bad or good.
He's the same guy that beat the Panthers week 1. I can't stop picturing that either. It's he is wildly inconsistent. But to your point, why are we drafting kickers?
Yeah.
Don't waste a draft pick on a kicker.
I will personally have some challenges with this game. I see the appeal in the Saints, and I think the market will see the appeal in the Saints. I am a little bit off market on Cleveland right now. So we'll see how quickly my numbers adjust when I run them this week. But does seem appealing. 3.5 seems very appealing right now with the New Orleans Saints. Okay. Houston Texans, Tennessee Titans. Pretty much 7s across the board. Literally 7 minus 110 at 3/4 of the shops that are open right now. Lower total in this game as well, which is roughly 40 across the market. This is actually going to be a cold game in Nashville, 12 degrees Fahrenheit. Pretty cold. It is the time of the year. There's a cold front coming up. I want to talk a little bit about the Texans before we give the number on our thoughts on this game. Because I didn't watch much of Texans and Chiefs today. I looked at the box score afterwards. Has anyone in the chat seen the box score for the Texans and Chiefs today? How this game was this close, I will never know. Like, there's nothing. It's not even like the turnover margin was so bad for Kansas City. Kansas City had a -1 turnover margin. Total yardage in the game. Chiefs 502. Texans 219. Yards per play. Chiefs 6.6. Texans 3.8. Success rate as a team on offense. Kansas City 61%. Houston 38%. Brett says referees. Bingo. That's the one. 10 penalties for 102 yards for the Chiefs. This was not even remotely close to a competitive game. I think people are really going to talk themselves up into the Texans for multiple reasons. But obviously, you have the back-to-back covers against the Cowboys and against the Chiefs, which is pretty big. A lot of people obviously are going to say, oh, it's two good teams. And then you have the injury situation for the Tennessee Titans, which is disaster. Traylon Burks on offense. Ryan Tannehill rolls his ankle today. You have Danico Autry out. You have Tierre Tart out as your nose tackle. Christian Fulton, Trey Avery, Amani Hooker. Terrence Mitchell gets hurt today. They already have like half their defense on IR as well. It's been just an absolute disaster for the Tennessee Titans. So I can see the appeal in Houston. But man, if this comes off of 7 and the Titans get some bodies back, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough not to bet the Titans if they get bodies back and this comes off of 7.
So yeah, I'm looking at this box score and good Lord. Yeah, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense at all. And I didn't
penalties. Just the penalties.
Yeah. Were they drive sustaining penalties too? Is that what was happening? Like pass interference? I did see the one pass interference call that was pretty big towards late fourth quarter, but
yep.
Is there going to be market sentiment for the Texans starting to cover some of these big numbers? Like, is that what you were just trying to
exactly
the point you were getting at? Okay.
Yep. I mean, I don't know how they covered the number today. Like you can't take that away from them. And it was never even remotely close to them not covering the number, right? Like you can't say, oh, they got lucky or whatever. No, like they were within the number for the entire game. But like, if this is a good point as well, Texans going to get Stingley or any wide receivers back. Stingley's on IR, so he's not coming back. They could get Nico Collins or Brandon Cooks back. They're without another corner right now. Their other starting corner, right? What's his name? Steven Nelson? Steven Nelson.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. I don't know. Challenging.
I mean, Tennessee likes to run the ball, right? Like that's what they want to do.
Yep.
The Texans' strength is neither rush nor pass. Can Tennessee just run the ball down their throat? Like, I think they can, and I think they can control the game.
They had.
So can they win by margin in this spot?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but did they not have one of those games where they just literally ran the ball right down the Texans' throat? It was like Malik Willis starting the game, and they won by a touchdown on the road. I'm pretty sure that happened. It did happen. It did happen. It was a road game. They won 17-10. Malik Willis had 10 attempts. 10 passing attempts in that game. It was 17-3 at one point. What an absolute disaster that was of a game. Clive's dealing with some connectivity issues. We will get him back in here very shortly. But the show keeps rolling, and we move on. Seattle and Kansas City. Seattle Seahawks, 10-point dogs on the road, pretty much across the market right now. The total, 49.5 in the vast majority of the books. Weather at Arrowhead, cold, very cold, as is the case in December. 0 degrees Fahrenheit for our matchup here. So extremely cold conditions. By the way, Clive has that New Jersey T-Mobile connection.
That's not bad. Yeah, Verizon isn't being too kind to me today. At all.
Chiefs and Seahawks. Everybody. No, it's okay. It is what it is. It is what it is. Problems in this game for me, trying to anticipate market movement, because you have a team in the Seahawks that's completely fallen off a cliff. They stink all of a sudden. Can't get anything done. Then you have the Kansas City Chiefs, who can seemingly never cover a big spread for some reason. I'm inclined to say that Seattle gets money.
Yeah, I think my interest is in the total in this game.
Okay.
And the total, I think this should probably be in the 50s.
I agree with you.
Even with the weather.
So, yeah, that's all I'm concerned about, right? Is does the 0 Fahrenheit play a factor? Or, my gut reaction was that I was surprised to see this number at 49.5.
Yeah. Who has Seattle's last 3 games been against? I don't have that up.
So Seattle would have been San Fran, Carolina, and the Rams. So their
2
offense
tough defenses.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah. I think the Seahawks take money, and I think this goes over.
We both agree.
Yeah.
Short and sweet. Next game. Giants and Vikings. Okay, we'll wait till this game goes final here, which we got an official review inside the last minute of the game, because this is not widely available yet. So we'll come back to it. Bengals and Patriots. We got some 3.5s. We got some 4s for the Bengals on the road, and we have a very low total. Basically, half the market painted 39.5, juiced over. Half the market painted 40 flat. Bengals and Patriots. Early thoughts on this one, Clive?
I, despite what the Patriots did today, I do think 3.5. I think it is going to come to New England's to probably -3. I mean, if you look at the Bengals Bucs, that happened today, and I think the Bucs probably should be a worse perceived team than the Pats. What's the weather situation in Boston? Is it going to suck the way it's going to suck in New Jersey this weekend?
It seems to not be as cold. So 26 Fahrenheit, windy. So we're looking at 15 to 20 mile an hour winds for this one. And again, this is early in the week, but it doesn't seem to be as bad as a lot of the other spots.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to be kind of what you mentioned before, and Jacoby Myers is going to be cut tomorrow. I saw one of those funny Jets player from Hard Knocks who went and his key card didn't work. I think it's going to be that kind of thing for Jacoby Myers tomorrow. Yeah, I think this probably goes down to 3. The total, I'd probably have to give a little bit more thought to which way it should go. I mean, that still feels a little bit light, but it wouldn't be
So
shocking either.
I agree with you. So, like, one thing in particular with Cincinnati, which is flying under the radar, obviously you have the Trey Hendrickson injury. I don't know if Trey Hendrickson is going to be back next week, but Mike Hilton, their nickel corner, is out. The Trey Hendrickson injury is made even larger because Sam Hubbard got hurt this week for Cincinnati on the D-line. They also lost another corner in Cam Taylor-Britt. So they're starting to pile up all these injuries on the defensive side of the ball. And if the weather's not that bad, then like a high 30s or a 40 looks low to me.
Yeah. I think it should probably 41 and a half, 42, somewhere in that range. With the injuries and all that stuff, I'd have to think a little bit more about it, but that seems a little bit more palatable. I know Mac Jones isn't the guy that's going to slice up a terrible defense, but he's also not terrible either. So I think we agree that the number will probably get bet up.
Both teams got faded in market from a sides perspective for this week. It'll be interesting, though. I don't know that New England draws money unless the Bengals injury situation gets worse, because they got faded pretty heavily at the Raiders. So I'm not sure that they're going to take some money in this game. Not sure.
Do you think that's more of a knock on New England or more of a pro Las Vegas sentiment?
I think it was originally pro Vegas because they activated Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow from IR. But then I thought, like, the money just kept piling in. So I think it might be anti-Pats.
Okay. It's certainly not pro Josh McDaniel.
It's not pro Josh McDaniel.
Did Bill Belichick just not want him to get fired? Like, is there a longer end game in sight here? Like, is it like Josh McDaniel gets fired if they blow another 14-point lead or whatever? Because that might be the only thing that win, whether it should or not, might save McDaniel's job for a little while longer.
It might.
As stupid as that is.
I know. He is a total goof. Detroit and Carolina. Detroit -3 everywhere on the road at Carolina. Total pretty much 44 everywhere. So we're sitting pretty heavily on two key numbers, both for the side and for the total. You wouldn't think of Carolina as a spot that would be weather impacted for a game, but it is going to be cold. It's going to be 25 Fahrenheit. You're going to have the Jared Goff cold weather stats that are brought up for another week. Didn't play particularly well today against the New York Jets for the most part, and Carolina does have a pretty strong defense overall. What are we thinking in terms of where this spread is most likely to move?
So it's curious to me because Carolina, again, got positive market sentiment against the Steelers, which I didn't think they had, more than I thought that they should have. So there were a couple teams where that happened with this week, and I think 3 of 4 of those teams lost that I'm thinking of.
I was surprised at the Carolina money. I really was. This particular matchup, though, the Lions have kind of been a darling. Up until this week, they kind of been a darling in the market as well. So it's pretty challenging overall to get a read on this one. I mean, I think just from a pure market perspective, if these teams had played today, the number wouldn't have been 3. So I think the Panthers are probably getting downgraded in market right now, but it's difficult, especially late in the year. You don't tend to see a lot of market sentiment in favor of the team that's like, I don't want to say Carolina has nothing to play for, because they do. They could still win the division, but you don't tend to see market sentiment for bad teams. I wouldn't be surprised. Like Moneyline Cam here says, numbers too high in my opinion, but I think it stays 3. I could see that as well. I could see this just being a case where people just don't want to get involved with Carolina. that doesn't necessarily mean that it's completely, the wrong number in the game or anything like that, but it's just not enough to warrant getting involved in Carolina. I think if it does get bet up to 3.5, you do see some Carolina interest in this game. I'm interested in the total here, which honestly, you get another week now of a Lions total at 44. I know it's not the fast track. I know it's a cold game, but doesn't seem like it's going to be supremely bad conditions. And frankly, the Panthers defense today, they let the Steelers move the ball on them. The Steelers had an 81.5% series conversion rate this week. That was the highest in the entire NFL. I'm not sure where this is going to go, but I think this is one of the few this week where I'd be more inclined to say that it moves towards the over than the under. One of the few ones this week as Clive rejoins.
We've moved locations that, for whatever reason, I don't think my router's working all that well.
Could be a sign of a storm coming in the Jersey area.
Great. Can't wait. What game did we just discuss?
Detroit, Carolina. So -3 Detroit and total of 44.
Total seems about right. I actually think that might maybe go under. I think it'll take under money. And I don't know what to do with Carolina. I like the number at 3. I think I'd be tempted to take Detroit, but not a strong feel either way. What did you end up?
I don't think that this is going to move off of 3. I really don't. I think I think that the market's downgraded Carolina for their performance today, rightfully so, in my opinion. But is it enough that you really want to go out and just bet the Panthers 3? No, yeah. I don't think it has appeal. Total, I'm in a little bit of disagreement, but I don't know. Again, cold weather game in Carolina. I'm not sure, but Lions totals at 44 just don't look right to me.
I could see that, and that's I get that feeling as well. I just don't know that the Panthers can take advantage of a weak Detroit pass defense. I just don't think that they can.
Right. I think you're probably right. They just don't have the passing game to do it. Completely agree on that front. This one's a little bit more challenging. Atlanta goes out on the road to take on Baltimore. We have some of the market with a juiced 6.5, some of the market with a 7. We don't know who the quarterback is going to be for Baltimore yet. In my opinion, this is a Huntley number. And we have a total of anywhere between 40 and on the higher end, 41, which I think solidifies that this is a Huntley number. Desmond Ridder stunk today. I'm just going to throw that out there. Was not impressed at all with his performance. It was a road game, but 2 weeks to prepare for that. He looked, in my opinion, not ready to play at this level. And if the Saints are going to do that to you in a raucous environment, I think the Ravens defense can do something similar, especially when you consider that all the Falcons really want to do is run the ball, and the Ravens can stop that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be elite running the ball, and you still need to be able to pass the ball a little bit to score on Baltimore. Was it you this week that said something about the market, continuously not really downgrading Huntley enough off of Lamar Jackson? Was that you, or was that somebody else? I thought it was you.
That was me. I mean, it's always talked about whenever Lamar gets hurt. It's like, it's not too much of a down. It's a huge downgrade. They have no weapons on offense. Lamar can overcome that with his, he's a great playmaker. I never understood that conversation. And this is not me ripping Tyler Huntley, by the way, either. He's a serviceable backup. He's fine. But there's a huge downgrade. It's almost a touchdown downgrade, in my opinion, just raw power rating type of situation. If Lamar plays, if we get any inkling that Lamar has a chance of playing in this game, I will click that -6.5, as fast as humanly possible.
Totally agree. But it seems like the market, it's 2 to 3 points. Like that's really all they're really downgrading. It's surreal to me, in all honesty. So where do you think it goes to with Lamar? Do you think it goes to 9.5?
North of 10.
How fast does it get there? Meaning, like, will the number come to 9.5 and then slowly over, or do you think it's like literally just going to get posted, -10 the minute that he's announced?
I think that's I think it's one of those that gets pulled, like it's off the board as soon as he's announced, and it gets reopened at like 10.5.
Okay.
Through 7 through 10.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I will try and get on that 6.5, obviously, as fast as possible.
Yeah. I mean, listen, it's one of those where it's news driven, but like I don't have very much interest in the Falcons altogether in this type of spot. They were incredibly lucky today, in my opinion, to cover spread. They had 4.6 yards per play to the Saints, 6.3 yards per play. It was just one of those where like the Saints couldn't put them away. Now, am I like supremely happy about going to the window with Baltimore -6.5, like needing them to cover margin with that offense? No, but I don't think that there's going to be a ton of market support for Atlanta in this game.
No, this is a Baltimore or nothing situation for me.
The total at 40, if it's a Huntley game, I'm inclined to go under.
Same.
Okay. We move on.
Like I could see that, and we don't have to belabor this. I could see that going under 39, like meaning like get down to 38.5. That would not shock me at all.
Right. Yep. I agree with you. I agree. Probably the game of the week. Eagles at the Cowboys. Christmas Eve, 4:25 p.m. Eastern time. Dallas opens a small favorite, -1.5 at most shops. Total at 51 in most shops, with some 51.5s on the board. You say wow right away.
It just seems high. Like it shouldn't probably, but it does. I don't know why. Not to the point where I would change anything, or I thought it would be more like 49.5, to be honest. But given the way Dallas's defense with the injuries and things like that, maybe it does make a little bit more sense in the way that, those totals have been going. So, all right, that's not so bad. It was just my first instinct.
Dallas right now profiles as an over team.
Yeah.
Because
it's not
of the
same as it was. Yep.
Because of the injuries on defense. With that said, I kind of agree with you. Like, if this were, I think that this actually might go higher. I do think that there's going to be, because most of the early week stuff is like taking a stance on like cluster injuries somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, Dallas has cluster injuries in the secondary and on defense. Like, let's just go out and bet against them and let's bet the over. And that's going to be the early position. But like, as it gets higher and higher, I think that there's going to be support for the under at that point as well.
I agree. Yep. I think that's probably the way it'll go.
And just like, I think Philly's going to take early money in this game.
Well, do you remember what they closed at the first time that they played?
Well, it was the Cooper Rush game, right? So it's not really indicative of anything, unfortunately.
Yeah. By the way, am I the only one that thinks Dak Prescott is going to get paid and he shouldn't? Like, is that not the conversation for here?
No, it's fine. I mean, listen, I'm a Cowboys fan, and I'm very concerned about Dak at the moment right now. As a pure drop back passer, he has not been good.
It's just been sloppy and underwhelming. I'm not saying Cooper Rush is better, and that doesn't mean that the people that were saying, let's let Cooper Rush play were right. It's just, I think he's not regressing, but I was hoping, I'm not a Cowboys fan, but I really wanted to see, put it this way, I'm a very, very anti-Eagles person. So whoever's in the chat, Philly, sorry, not for me. Much rather see the Cowboys, take the NFC East, but they're just not giving me a lot of hope.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. You want to play a really fun game with friends out there. Go through all the quarterbacks who are currently in a playoff position in the NFC and try to rank them from top to bottom. And tell me where you put Dak in that.
From the playoff teams?
Jalen Hurts, Daniel Jones, Taylor Heineke, Tom Brady, Brock Purdy, and what other division am I missing right now off the top of my head?
Cousins.
Kirk Cousins. Where do you put Dak in that mix? And yeah.
Tied for third with everyone else that's not Jalen Hurts. And
That this is going to be the NFC playoffs, right? And honestly, I will say this, and don't take this out of context. Jalen Hurts has had an amazing year, and whatever. But the 2 picks today, I don't care. But I think that there are enough people that could be in the same situation as Jalen Hurts if they just swap places.
You're doing the Micah Parsons thing.
I kind of am, yes.
I'm okay with it because I do agree with him to a pretty large extent, actually. I think the answer lies in the middle, but I do think that there's something to it for sure, where he is a product of his team, not necessarily a standout player. I was wrong on A.J. Brown for sure, and I was wrong on Jalen Hurts to a degree, but it's a combination of variables. This is not just the Jalen Hurts show.
This question, it depends. Is the game in prime time? This is a great answer to the NFC rankings. Yeah, it depends where you're going to put Cousins in that list, whether or not the game is in prime time. Unfortunately, all the playoff games are considered prime time, or at least standalone games. If Justin Fields is on the Eagles, do they have the same record?
Maybe a slight downgrade?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's really, really hard to evaluate Jalen Hurts because there's no one in that type of situation where you have all of these great weapons around you, great offensive line, great defense. Cousins is better than Dak. He very well could be. It's hard to say for sure.
I mean, you want to die by fire or do you want to die by drowning? I don't know. I don't really particularly. Right. The elite quarterbacks really aren't there anymore. The aging quarterbacks are falling off, and there's not somebody really coming up to replace them from the pocket passer perspective. You have Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts, and guys like that. That's what you're getting.
If we want to talk about a team that the market has finally caught up on, look no further than the Pittsburgh Steelers next week, who are now 2 to 2.5 point home favorites to the Las Vegas Raiders. The total at 40.5. I'll pull up the weather, but you can assume it's going to be cold as shit in Pittsburgh and windy, which is exactly what it is. 12 Fahrenheit, winds anywhere between 10 and 15 miles an hour as of right now. Market's caught up to the Steelers. Do we think that, I almost feel like this can only go one way at this point, which is towards Las Vegas.
Yeah, I don't think this could get to. This can't go to 3 in no situation, unfortunately. I'd be tempted to take Vegas at this number, unfortunately. I'd be tempted to take Vegas.
So what? I wouldn't be surprised if the market just comes in on Vegas at this price. It wouldn't shock me at all. It's a big adjustment, I think, over the course of 1 week to get. Pittsburgh just closed 2.5 point dog at Carolina. Now they're laying 2.5 at home to Las Vegas. Don't know about that one. What was the total there? Was that 40.5?
Which game?
This was the total in Las Vegas. Pittsburgh was at 40.5 is the market right now.
I don't really have a strong feeling either way, honestly, in this one. What did the Pats game close at today? 45?
Yeah.
Pats.
Man, it feels, listen, I know it's December home game, Pittsburgh, all that. a total in the low 40s, bordering on getting into the 30s for Vegas for the Raiders seems extremely low to me.
It
Like,
does, even with the weather.
Raiders defense is terrible. And the Steelers moved the ball well on the Panthers defense today.
True. Yeah, it definitely feels light. It feels and I think I might have said this earlier in one of my tweets this week. Like, this is the time of year when I struggle, like, with totals, because I don't think I account for weather well enough.
Yeah.
But I feel like this game should get bet and it's going to go up. But
I don't know, man. I honestly just think in a lot of cases, like, I wouldn't be surprised if people listen to this back tomorrow morning and a bunch of the totals have already moved down a couple points. Like, that would not surprise me whatsoever, because you have a lot of situations here where it's just like, I think people are just going to, you just take a shot, right? It's like, okay, it might be really bad weather, in which case I'm going to end up with a great position, or it might not be. And I'm just coin flipping at that point. Like, there's not huge downside. So I think for people listening back, anything that could potentially be impacted by weather, I think is just going to get bet down heavily over Monday.
Yeah, I mean, if you like the under at all, like, you're going to want to probably bet most of these games early. Definitely didn't work out for me in the Dolphins-Bills game, but I really thought that weather was going to be horrid, and they barely got any snow in the game at all. So, yeah, take the upside where you can get it, and you might see some big line moves down.
Yep. We got 3 games on Christmas Day. Now, when this schedule was released, I can't even tell you how much I was looking forward to Christmas Day. Think about this schedule at the beginning of the year. Packers at Dolphins, Broncos at Rams, Bucs at Cardinals. This looks like the most disgusting schedule ever now. We're going to skip over the first 2 games because the Packers and the Rams both play on Monday Night Football. It's not a widely available market yet. Whatever happens on Monday Night Football will impact that. But we got Tampa Bay and Arizona. Probably the 2 teams in the league that I would love to just keep betting against, and they just happen to play each other. Market is Tampa Bay -4 on the road. Totals 40.5. There's a very decent chance that we get Trace McSorley as the starting quarterback for the Arizona Cardinals, who, by the way, were missing their top 3 cornerbacks today in the game against the Broncos and made Brett Rippon look better than Russell Wilson, frankly, by the end of the game. I have zero clue where the market is going to move this game.
I mean, nobody has interest in Arizona, unfortunately. So either it moves to the Bucs a little bit, maybe a half a point off of this to 4.5, and not much more than that. But every week I say that, and the market still seems to love Tom Brady somehow. So, and the Bucs.
But it has to be Tampa. It has to be Tampa, though. Like, like the Cardinals are dead team, right? Like, toast. 3rd string quarterback in all likelihood for next week.
Who's terrible. Like, he is terrible. Just
yeah, we got this in the chat. Bucs -3.5 is cheap. I'm laying Tampa. Night game from Grandpa Tom. Oh, man. All right. We'll go head over to Monday night. Chargers and Colts. Chargers -3 on the road at Indianapolis. Total is 47.5. 47.5 -3. Chargers are relatively healthy now. They probably will get Derwin James back in the lineup next week.
I mean, the Colts, I don't change my opinion of them based off of this week at all. I don't know if you do. This just feels like the right number, and maybe just people are still a little sour on the Chargers, and maybe it goes to 2.5. I don't know. I really don't. But Matt Ryan's so cooked, just so cooked.
I think this total is going to come down, is my initial reaction. Now, it is played indoors. It'll be good conditions. That's something to take into account for sure with a total of 47.5. But I do think that the total is likely going to come down just because of the fact that the Colts offense is like catastrophically bad. And on top of that, the Chargers O-line can't really block anything either. Like Justin Herbert was on the Tennessee's missing so many defensive starters, and the Chargers could barely muster they score 17 today against them. I think the most likely move in this game is towards the under. I think the Chargers will probably take money at 3.
Yeah, it's probably all going to be player injury related and stuff. Jonathan Taylor is probably out for a couple games, right? Like, is he? That looked like a rough.
It did not look good. It did not look good for him whatsoever. We haven't got a reopen yet. Before we sign off, I just wanted to give some thoughts on the Giants and the Vikings. So we don't know what this is going to open up at now. So I guess we can actually play the game. But Giants go out on the road, Minnesota Vikings.
Well, I saw the numbers that were there. Like the numbers, I guess, I don't know if that was a look ahead line or FanDuel or.
Yeah, those are just like
-4.
the small limit lines at a few different sports books, which we got some 4s and a 3.5, total 47.5.
I think the Vikings will probably take money at -4. This, to be honest, but I'm even though I still thought that the Giants were shouldn't have been 5.5 point dogs or 4.5 point dogs even to the Redskins. I think the Vikings are markedly better. I think it probably closes 4.5, but maybe that's just my sentiment.
So the Giants, I don't know that they win 20-12 at Washington with 288 total net yards. They hold Washington to 1 for 10 on third down, and they win in turnover margin +2 today. As we start to get hit with the porn bots per usual in the chat. It's about that time of night now. The Giants closed 4-point dogs at Washington. How can they be 4-point dogs at Minnesota? Like, Minnesota's better than Washington.
That's what I'm saying. So I don't get it.
Like, I'm not upgrading the Giants. I'm not changing my rating of the Vikings. I feel like the market is just going to just bet Minnesota tomorrow morning. Like, that's got to just be the obvious move. Unless everyone's just so soured on Minnesota now. I don't think so, right?
No, they're not. I mean, if this thing closed anything less than 4.5, unless I'm missing something injury related, I would be surprised.
Yeah.
You're going to tell me that the Vikings and the Redskins are equally,
the Commanders.
And you put the Vikings.
I have to correct you.
I do that all the time. Sorry. Washington. I liked it better when they were the football team, by the way.
So did I. Honestly, it was just way easier when they were the football team.
Yeah. Anyway, that being said, indoors, Vikings, I think it should be 4.5 to 5.
I was wishing the Vikings would just continue to be playing like good offenses. The Giants' offense stinks. So it's like one of those where, I want Vikings overs. Let's put it that way. But do I want a Vikings over at 47.5 with the Giants offense? That's going to be a hard pass, I think.
Yeah, that's kind of hard to get behind.
We'll finish off with the commies. Not widely available yet, but the early indicators are, this is all over the place. Let's say San Fran roughly 7 with a total of 40.5 hosting the Commanders. See, like San Fran to me, I don't know. I don't know where San Fran is, what the perception of them is at this point. Like, it looks light, that price to me.
It does. And the Commanders are no offensive juggernaut in any way, shape, or form. And the Giants are not a defensive juggernaut either. So even just based off of today, like, I think it closes on the other side of 7, like 7.5, 8, 8.5, even with Purdy at quarterback.
So do I, but I might then have interest in Washington because I just don't think that there's enough teams in the league that, I mean, this has been a theme all year, right? Like, there's not a lot of blowouts in the NFL anymore. There's tons of close games. Look at all the one-score games again today. Like, it's tough for teams to win by margin. And as high as I am on San Fran, like, God, like this, it's getting to the point now where it's like they have to be worse with Purdy, right? Like, they have to be worse with Purdy.
Yeah, it's a matter of how much do you really think. Is it a point? Is it a point and a half?
Yeah.
I'm more interested in Purdy versus Trey Lance and what the perception is in San Francisco about those two guys meeting. Like, if Purdy continues to play well, say he wins a playoff game or two, what does that team do from there? But I mean, that's a little premature.
Well, I mean, they can unload Garoppolo. No one wants the dollars, right? No one will take that contract. That's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
There might be interest in Trey Lance. What you can get for him at this point, I don't know.
Yep. Agree. If you did enjoy this episode of Forward Progress, if you're listening on Spotify or on Apple, please rate and review 5 stars. It goes a long way. If you're on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and to like our content. We do have a ton of other stuff on the Forward Progress channel, including Same Game Parlay Show tomorrow with Crabs Bets, with DGen Weekly, back by popular demand for Monday Night Football. It is a hit. I tune in and watch it. I've always been fascinated with people's logic in putting together a same game parlay, and I do find it incredibly entertaining. One thing I do want to hear from people in the comments, let us know which format you prefer. We value the feedback. Me and Clive talk about it every single week. We just want to put on good content and cater to the masses. Do you prefer it when we're blindly guessing the games, what they're going to open at? Or do you prefer it if we actually know the starting point and can give some insights as to where we think the market is going to go? We're not offended either way. Happy to do whatever the masses are. But if you could drop a comment below on YouTube here, let us know. Or you can DM the Forward NFL account on Twitter. You can DM myself. You can DM Clive. You can DM the Hammer HQ. You can do whatever. Just get in contact with us and let us know, because it's something that is important to us. And before you sign off tonight on YouTube, definitely click that like button. Like, just click it before you're done.
Yeah, Santa's got to get me some wired internet connections. So, the more likes and subscriptions, that's what he's looking for.
So it's a life changer. I'm wired up over here. I try to hide the rotor behind the Cowboy symbol. What a horrible!
Oh, is that what that is? Now I see the lights. I thought that was just part of the Cowboys side.
It is not part of the Cowboys. It has been. Yeah. Just,
well done.
Yes. I mean, now the cat's out of the bag. Unfortunately, the cat is out of the bag. Appreciate it to everyone. Appreciate everyone tuning in. For myself, Rob Pizzola, for Clive Bixby, for our producer, Jason Cooper. This has been Forward Progress. It's part of the Hammer Betting Network. You can check out all our content at thehammer.bet and subscribe to the Forward Progress channel. Thanks very much for everyone. Good luck with your bets in week 16 and enjoy the holidays. Peace, everyone.
Good luck. Happy holidays.